Okay, guys, here we are. Episode number 11 of the DeFi Recode. We've got Cardano Rare Pool team on here, as well as Epic Blockchain team. We're going to do a little introduction here. Sorry, that was a little shaky there. I had to get the video corrected from our moving around there. We were sharing some fun stuff with each other before the stream started there. I'm going to introduce you first here to Wes, my partner here that's live in the studio with me. He's my partner with Rare Pool. Helped us get the Rare Pool started until we ran into some problems, and I'll kind of let him introduce myself before we get into Nick and Alonzo that you see up there as well.
What's up? What do you call your followers? Ran Corpians.
Yeah, just chat.
What up, chat? My name's Wes Parkinson, and started Rare Pool in the middle of the pandy. After being inspired and bored enough to watch thousands of YouTube videos from like the first winter of the pandemic. So I ultimately got locked away in a little mountain apartment that I had with nothing better to do. Stumbled upon some whiteboards of the Cardano project and then completely went down the rabbit hole. And then from there started buying up the Cardano. Considered a stake pool, but I didn't think I had enough, and then kind of revisited the idea and got some serious inspiration from Rand to follow through with it. So we got the thing registered, and from there it was a little bit rocky. Got a full-time job as a sales engineer for a software company where I sell enterprise content management systems in the realm of healthcare. So taking it on was a bit much at the current point in time there, and we were kind of hoping for a rescue.
Yeah.
And that's where the guys above come into play.
Yeah, let's get into it a little bit. We've got Alonzo up here on the top left and Nick on the top right. Alonzo, if you want to introduce yourself, let's start there.
Cool. Yeah. Hi, guys, or hi, chat. My name's Alonzo, and yeah, I'm a part of the Epoch Stake Pool, and have been working with Nick for the better part of, I don't know, the last decade. I think this is where I'm supposed to say I'm a member of the block news and research, but everything I say here is my own opinion, and I'm here on my own accord. Thank you. That sounded pretty official, but no, I'm just a guy in my basement, and have been involved in Cardano, for the last, I say, 4.5 years. I actually got into it from the classic whiteboarding video from Charles Hoskinson. I don't know if everyone's seen that, but it's a must watch, and that's ultimately what got me interested. And I bought Cardano on the way down, one cycle ago. And then, tracked it throughout the bear period. And, anytime it went down, bought some, and, finally decided to do a stake pool with Nick in January this year. So that's me in a nutshell. And yeah.
Nice little segue to Nick there here on our top right. Nick, you want to introduce yourself a little bit?
Yeah, what up, chat? My name is Nick. I'm a software developer by trade. Been doing that for like the last 10 years, actually, almost exactly. I mostly got brought into crypto by Alonzo, I think way back in like 2012 when he showed me his like Bitcoin and Doge mining rigs that were like built on top of some like hampers so that his cats couldn't ruin them. And I've been kind of slowly following and getting more into it with each bull run cycle, with kind of the one around, was it 2014, 2015, really trying to learn a bit more about like Bitcoin and really understand kind of what's going on there. The last one actually starting to get involved and starting to buy some crypto, which is, the same time when I started owning some ADA, though a very small amount, because it was one of the ones that Alonzo was pretty excited about. And then it was, this past, fall and winter when I think Alonzo called me at a random like Saturday, I think it was like in the middle of December. And he was just like, look, man, I think ADA is the one, like, we have to move all of our money there and just have fun with ADA and do some cool stuff with it. And then before a month was up, we had already started a pool on the test net, felt pretty good about it, and made one on the main net at the beginning of January. And we've been having a lot of fun just operating that, doing the social media, and just trying to automate as much as we can with that process ever since. And it's been fun. And we've been trying to dabble in some other validators as well. But Cardano has been a really fun ecosystem to be a part of between the community and just kind of the rapid release of the features and the projects that they're doing over there at IOHK.
Absolutely. And like to shine a little bit more light on how basically how myself and Wes came together. Friend of my fiance's best friend is Wes's sister. So that's how myself and Wes kind of got together. He actually introduced me to Cardano. I've been in and out of cryptocurrency, dipped my toe in back in 2017, and then kind of got out after the crash. And when I started to look at it again, Wes was like, look at Cardano. And then running the stream and everything, I was like, oh my God, we need a stake pool. And that's how that scheme kind of got going and how we got in over our heads. And that led to our, when our pool broke down after a couple months and we found out the pools broke down and we couldn't figure it out. I was like, let's go to the Bitcoin conference. Let's go to this Cardano meetup. And that's in general where we all met, was at the Bitcoin conference. Before we kind of want to get into that, I kind of like where we all gave our backstory there. What was the first price that everybody bought Cardano at? Wes, let's start with you. Do you remember your first purchase?
I'm going to go with 6 or 7.
6 or 7 cents. Alonzo?
I think officially like $1.20 and $1 are the first 2 big purchases.
You were early. You got in like at the top of the last bull market, huh? That's
pretty much.
Nick, what was your first Cardano purchase?
No, I actually have everything tracked in some like program I wrote like 3 years ago. My first Cardano purchase, I can tell you, was on December 18th, 2017, and it was 58 cents.
Oh, wow, very specific. I don't know the date of mine, but I do know it was like around 8 cents to about a year and a half ago now at this point. So,
well, it's funny, like how you were saying, Alonzo, you gave Nick a call. I remember coming right down to this basement and being like, I've got this much. If the price goes to this much and I wait this long, it like puts my 401k to shame. And I believe in this project this much. And Rand's like, what? Dude, proof of stake. So we can change the game. And from there, we were both equally obsessed, I would say, with Cardano. It only took you a couple of days to start basically talking about it every day with one another.
Jumping into that whiteboard video, exactly like Nick said, you like get into that and you start like researching the project and what's going on. It starts to really click and make sense. I mean, pretty quickly. Did you guys find it was pretty easy to get into Cardano when you first found it? Like, was it easy to click and resonate with the project?
I think so. For me at least, when we got started, we agreed to do like a 30-day fail fast period.
Yeah.
And we didn't want to think too hard about it, but we wanted to work hard for 30 days and see, if we would have traction. And I remember complaining a little bit about documentation, where it was like we were trading doc links and it was like various blog posts, and it was like, well, this guy said this, well, this person said this, and we were trying to like piece together various solutions. And ultimately, I think it took us 15 days to hit like, we should probably be going forward. Like, we'll wait for the full 30, but like we registered on the 15th of January. And I remember it was like the 1st of February where we were like, holy shit, the pool's working. And it may keep working. Like maybe we should not turn it down and, like actually go forward with it. So it took us pretty fast. I think it was pretty fast to get set up. And I think that's because things generally worked once you knew the right commands and whatnot. But I don't know, Nick, you can probably comment a little bit more on the actual kind of setup of the node in the first relays.
Yeah, it was, I think the trickiest part was that like, it's easy to know if you kind of had like a node at least up and running, because they're kind of like the two kind of node types you might have in any sort of architecture, right? You have like your relays, which are basically just replaying transactions and helping them propagate through the network. And then you have your core node, which is the actual one that's like eligible to produce the blocks with the stake, with that protocol and whatnot. And I just remember being like, everything feels like it's set up right. It says like it's running in core mode when we're using some of these like, tools from like the CN tool guild community operators group, which shout out to them. They put out a lot of awesome good content and utilities for Cardano. But and at that time, I didn't really understand how the leader schedules worked and that you can actually predict when you're going to get a block and all that kind of stuff. So it was funny because we were just like, we think it's working. We have like a fair amount of ADA. I think we were at like maybe 1 million or something in there. And we were just like, when's this thing actually going to produce a block? And so a couple epochs went by and it didn't. And so we were just like kind of scratching our heads, but also knew it was like a random luck thing. And so we weren't sure. And then I remember we got like the Pool Tool app, you know, they have the website pooltool.io. It has a phone app and you can actually get notifications when different pools produce blocks. So we had that enabled. And I remember, I think we got it, Alonzo, it was like at 4 a.m. or something. I don't remember because we like both were woken up by the notification somehow. 4 a.m. for me, I think 2 a.m. for you. You were like, I just woke up from sleeping on the couch, which I didn't ask why you were on the couch that night. And we were like, holy shit, it's a block. And it was pretty cool to see.
Oh my gosh, I remember that now. I was sleeping on that couch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But, you know, for me, it was part of the reason why I got excited about building this validator is I just wanted to learn a little bit more about both server administration and like just like building something on AWS. And so this seemed like a good project to do that with. And so I think a lot of the bumps that we may have had early on was just around a lot of that server administration stuff. Like, how do you make sure Cardano logs don't just flood your disk and then break operation, all the network security and all that kind of stuff. And so, but the Cardano documentation, there's a couple of good websites that are kept up to date and are really easy to follow. I think my favorite is the one by CoinCashew. I probably go back to that one the most, and it seems to be kept up to date pretty well. And so if you find the right guide, I think it's good, but it takes a while to find the right guide if you don't know which one to look for.
Yeah, I think CoinCashew is a very nice, you know, guide for us getting in. But then I think, you know, when some of that troubleshooting comes into play, there's more advanced knowledge required, which is where we ran into some struggles.
Absolutely. And like, I definitely think we ran into the same thing of like at first, like how do we document all this? There's not that much documentation out there to even pour through on how to do this.
Yeah.
A little bit of like head banging on how to get it all even, like how to even look into it and set, you know, what's the process to set it up was a little difficult, I feel like.
Once you get the little farmer emoji, though, it feels good. I think I was on a chairlifts, like snowboarding when I heard it. I'm like, never heard that push notification before. Nice.
We're working.
Yeah. No, the first block is amazing too, because you post about it on Twitter. You're like, we got a block, and like every person in Cardano and their like closest relative like comments, and they're like, congratulations, like it's amazing. It's just everyone's clapping, and it's awesome. I'll never forget that first block.
Yeah,
absolutely. I'll definitely never forget the first block. That was a good time. And at that point, we're like, oh my god, this is easy. They're gonna be coming all the time, and it's broke.
And that kind of speaks to the community beyond the technical stuff. I mean, when I went into it, I think I saw the Hodgkinson TED Talk first, and this was before he was doing weekly uploads on YouTube. But once it got to that point, it's like you can hear it straight from the horse's mouth and a very open, straight up opinion. That allowed me to believe in the protocol a little bit more. And then just other people in the community that are doing, you know, podcasts like this. I mean, there's been folks that have been doing this for years at this point, and you can get educated, and it's not all price predictions, and people make everyone well aware that it's not really price driven as far as their passion goes. So, I mean, that's really what brought me into it, along with the developing world efforts that come along with the mission.
I guess a good question kind of before we lead into like a maximalist conference like the Bitcoin conference, but like thoughts on that, like the multi-blockchain world where it all fits. Like, are you guys multi-blockchain people? Are you maximalists on Cardano? Do you see like a fit for different blockchains? Where do you think you guys stand?
Did you want to go, Nick? Or
yeah, sure. I mean, I definitely believe there's lots of good projects out there. And that at the end of the day, it's a pretty complex ecosystem of products that are coming out. And it's really hard to see what's going to end up winning it all out. I do like Cardano at the end of the day. It's probably the one that I'm the most bullish on, the one that I put my money where my mouth is the most. But, you know, I'm also frankly a fan of a lot of the blue chip cryptos, Bitcoin, Ethereum, those sorts of things, but also interested in some of the other up and coming projects that frankly might even be Cardano competitors like Avalanche or things like that, because they all kind of try to approach the problem in like kind of a slightly different way and are trying to build on the earlier ones like Ethereum in interesting ways so that they can kind of avoid some of the problems that, everyone's been seeing with it over the last, 6-12 months and that sort of thing. But, at the end of the day, to me, it's just like, I don't think I think there will be ultimately multiple winners. I kind of think of like a lot of these smart contract platforms as like the different other kinds of platforms we have today, whether it's like the Google Play Store or the Apple, the Apple Store. I'm forgetting the name of the Apple Store now. But anyways, that there just might be a couple of them that are doing really well and they have different things that they host, but like they both have good market share and just ultimately do well. So I'm definitely a multi-block person, but Cardano is the fave.
No, you're a multi-block person, huh?
I am. I mean, before the stake pool, I had Theta Guardian node that my buddy and I went in on back when there was quite a large amount required to be able to build one. But at the end of the day, it was like a setup wizard. And that's really what made me want to go to the Cardano stake pool to level up and get like way more hands-on, because this is that's insanely passive. This is an actual business. But as far as belief in others, yeah, I think Theta is about 50% of my portfolio, but then beyond that, I've got 40 plus other holdings. So I love Theta. Of course, I'm going to say Ethereum if they get it fixed, and shout out to Bitcoin.
Shout out to the OGs. Did you guys go to Alonzo and Nick? Were you guys at the Cardano meetup? Because we hadn't met at that point before the Bitcoin conference. Were you guys there?
No.
No, you guys did not make it to that. Okay. What'd you guys think of the Bitcoin conference itself?
Yeah, I thought the conference was wild, right? Like it was quite a spectrum of events and situations, from the very bullish like hedge fund type investors, wanting to talk about anything, to the nerds wanting to like deeply talk about like protocol specific stuff. And like everyone seemed to have like an infinite kind of reservoir of energy to talk about that stuff. Usually you think you're imposing on someone by having like an extended conversation, but here it was like phone off, phone down, like I am paying attention to you and we're talking about this like obscure blockchain fact, and it's going to be for the next 3 hours. So like
yeah, for once someone's not staring at their phone screen while you're trying to watch a movie together or have a conversation. There's some passion.
Yeah, it was wild.
It was definitely engaging.
But you also had the maxis, right? Like, you asked, am I multi-blockchain? And I think the quick answer is yes. I started with Bitcoin, then moved to Dogecoin and Ethereum, and then added like 35 different altcoins to my portfolio in like 2016 and 2017. That was a disaster. But I had this idea, that you should invest by use case, right? Diversify investments. If you think about like the S&P 500, right, there should be some index of cryptos that's good. So I was for a while obsessed with an idea of like, let me build the perfect index. But then I thought, wow, there's a bunch of smart people with a lot of money who are going to be doing this problem. So like, I'll let them solve it, but I can do my own version. And that's where kind of I ended up getting excited about Cardano, because, I went to about 30 to 35 different cryptos, and then I watched various ones turn into scams or be scams or lose my money or various things, and got down to a set of like 6 now, or 8. I think most recently I added Solana and AVAX, Avalanche. But now I'm at this core set that I think like are distributed across a set of use cases, right? So like Crypto.com has a rewards card that's a different product than like the store of value in Bitcoin, which is different than the transactional value of Ethereum or Cardano. So I like to invest across use cases, and I think for that, like, you have to be multi-blockchain if you're going to consider it as a asset class. At least that's my thought.
How do your backgrounds like come into play when it got you like into crypto? Do you think it like helped you like with the careers you guys are in? Like, it seems like everybody here is in some kind of technical background or something like that. Did that make it easy to kind of get into cryptocurrency and have people around you to bounce ideas off of? Or was it something that you just like, picked up on your own and kind of hid for a moment? I guess, Wes, where would you say you started there?
I think I eventually got colleagues to talk about crypto after influencing them, and I got one guy right down the rabbit hole and became like a little whale this year. So it's been nice to have that like one-on-one work best friend to talk to, and then beyond that, the company that I work for just acquired a credentialing software called BlockCert. So I realized, wow, if we're acquiring blockchain companies, this is real. The company that I've worked for the past decade and strongly believe in, also now officially believes in this. And I mean, as far as I gave my last interviews technical presentation on blockchain and got a new role at my company. So it's helped me already.
It helped you engage and basically have confidence. So you guys what about you guys, Nick or Alonzo?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was pretty confidence boosting, right? Because like anything I looked at, I was like, I should be able to know this, right? Like I have a degree in computer science from Carnegie Mellon. There's no way that like I should be confused by the concept, right? If I built an operating system with Nick, like I should be able to understand how someone built a blockchain. So I think it definitely gives you a ton of confidence to say, I have to keep digging until I actually understand what the hell's going on. And if I don't understand it, then I'm going to call someone smarter than me. And they're going to, I'm going to loop them into this problem. And, that's actually how I wore Nick down over the years was, I kept sending him kind of interesting questions until he would be like, wait, I want to know more now. And then, I think the second thing I'll say, and then Nick, curious for your thoughts, but it definitely being in tech, it adds like an accelerant to projects, right? You would learn about things faster. I remember, someone named, well, I won't say their name, but this person from, a school basically sent me my first Ethereum, like a long, long time ago. And he sent me 10 Ethereum and I ended up putting it on like, a virtual box within a work laptop because I didn't understand what was going on. And like, there's no way I would have been exposed to Ethereum that early if I didn't have this very kind of tech heavy friend. And then, we all kind of share these new things very quickly. So yeah, I think it's an accelerator for us, for sure.
And Nick, did you kind of get kind of pulled in from Alonzo basically? Did he just like pick at you and just chip away until you were like, all right, I'm getting into cryptocurrency. I can't not do this.
I never do anything Alonzo says, first and foremost. Alonzo usually tells me something or like informs me of something, and then I wait for like a normal person to bring it up, and I'm like, oh, okay, so Alonzo wasn't just blowing smoke up his ass or out his ass or something like that. And that's kind of how it works for like a lot of stuff. But Alonzo's generally like super excited and thinks about like, how can this thing that exists today that seems cool reach its ultimate potential? Like I remember very specifically in 2011, I think this is, Alonzo, your first apartment. We were hanging out and you're like, look at this phone app I have. I can press this button and like a black car will come and pick me up and take me anywhere I want to go. And he was talking about Uber. And I was like, this doesn't make any sense. Like we have taxis, like why is this app so special? And it's costing you like $50 to go like 4 miles or something. So like, this doesn't seem that great. And then like, lo and behold, that obviously became kind of a good idea. Same thing with like the crypto stuff, I got it. I understood what was going on technically. It didn't click for me yet. I didn't really see the use cases, even for something like Bitcoin. While I believe in it, I think the reason why I have different thoughts on I think there's a lot of people who think it's like the people's salvation and their key to freedom. I kind of have different opinions on what value it provides, but it was, I think, a coworker or someone who came up to me in 2016 who was like, do you like cryptocurrencies? And when they brought it up, I was like, hey, you know what? Stuff has got legs. Time to put my money where Alonzo's mouth is. So that's into it. But yeah, he would just be talking to me about it nonstop, trying to get me excited about it. We've been close friends for a long time, so we basically talk about everything. But this was one of the things he was the most excited about.
We had a good question in the chat here from Pow Pow Power Live. Does Cardano use a tech layer similar to the graph, which a lot of ETH projects use. I have no idea what that means. Do any of you guys?
Basically, is there someone out like grabbing a bunch
Like
of
decentralized
data off of
data
Block?
aggregation layer. I believe it does. Like there's metadata attached to the transactions of Cardano, correct? Or there will be.
I don't think there's a graph-like project that I'm aware of on that's tried to get funding yet for Cardano, but I'm sure there's one out there trying at the moment.
Yeah, they have like the GraphQL API and things like that. So IOHK does release some tooling on top of Cardano that works like hand in hand with the nodes so that you can like do a better job exploring kind of the blockchain and seeing kind of what UTXOs are out there and things like that. So you're not like trying to parse the ledger yourself or that sort of thing. So if that's the kind of thing you're talking about, then they do offer tooling for that. And it can be a pretty interesting and useful way. You can literally query individual transactions and that sort of thing from it. But that's the most of what I know of.
Makes a lot of sense. And then I guess let's get back into like, back onto the conference. What was your favorite part for you guys? What, like Nick and Alonzo, what was your favorite part of the conference? Was it like a booth, any speech? What like talking to any specific people? I know myself and Wes were the best part, but other than us, what was your second best part of the conference that you guys had going on?
Oh man, more than anything, I was basking in the fact that I was vaccinated and actually out of my house for the first time in 15 months. That was the best part. No, it really was talking to people, honestly. The actual sessions, I honestly could give or take. I think we went to like maybe 2 or 3 of them. And they were all, they were okay. I definitely learned some stuff about like Lightning Network and stuff like that. But talking to people and just kind of hearing their perspective on the space was really cool. Like Alonzo said, everyone's like really excited. There were maybe a couple people who were like kind of push their own book sort of thing, but I think everyone else was just like excited to like actually be face to face with people who like wanted to talk about crypto. Because I don't know about you all, but like I have like a messenger group that people talk about crypto with, but like all my friends are like, in a lot more traditional industries. So like they don't believe in crypto. They don't quite see what the vision is with it and that sort of thing. So that part was awesome. But the other part that was also pretty dope was the exhibitors hall. There were just a lot of cool companies and things like that existed. Some of it was silly, like a company that would create an NFT for any item you owned and then let you borrow against it, I think was one of them. Alonzo probably remembers that one better, but that was pretty cool just to see what kind of projects and businesses people are trying to build on top of crypto.
Yeah, I think those were good. I'm not going to use the same ones that Nick used, but I will say like how fun some of the events were. Like the events had a very unique diversity among the people there. Everyone was there for a different reason, and everyone kind of wanted to chat about some topic or another. And I thought what impressed me was kind of, the willingness of people to have a conversation and to also just like trust in what's going on. Like people were definitely very interested to discuss various blockchain efforts. It wasn't just because it was a Bitcoin conference didn't mean that we only talked about Bitcoin, despite the aggressive emails they sent us to only to talk about Bitcoin. But we did, I think, just have a lot of fun talking about the different protocols, and I had multiple people join our pool throughout that week. So I remember like how excited I was, just the number of people who were like, hey, yeah, I'm gonna buy Cardano right now, can you show me how to do that thing? And I think we got like 7 or 8 delegators over those 3-4 days. So I definitely remember just that, like, hey, let's talk about Cardano, and then like let's do all of it right now, because like this is clearly the time to act. I was like, wow. I was like, okay, so I thought I was bullish. Turns out like there's a ton of other bullish people across the demographics, and that was pretty energizing to see.
Yeah, I thought it was very interesting. Like I thought I was gonna walk into like a den of like Bitcoin maxis. Just like you said, like the way the emails were sent out and everything like that, I was like, oh God, like what am I really going into here, And then like actually meeting and talking with everybody, I feel like the excitement there, like people just wanted to meet other people, be able to talk with like-minded people that are interested in like cryptocurrency and blockchain in general. Like not only meeting you guys, but like we met so many people that were interested in other blockchains. And like during that like maximalist talk, speech. Like so many people were like booing.
Bugger future.
Yeah, like
Definitely
booing
a
the
bug.
like maximalist talk. So it was kind of refreshing to be like, all right, thank God this isn't like what the email said it was going to be, and that it was like completely Bitcoin maximalism everywhere. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the presenter following the Maxi presentation that just introed with, well, that was bullshit.
Yeah,
Really relieved everyone's concerns. I would say that, I mean, the thing that was most noticeable for me looking back at it was just how amazingly small in the physical it was. The fact that we sat down next to you guys completely randomly, and now we're here on this stream, and that happened probably 10 times over. And then I think, you know, more promisingly, every single person I think I brought Cardano up to knew what it was and already had pre-interest, but just hadn't like taken the plunge yet, and unless they were a Maxi or like I think I shouted out.
One
to,
guy lifted his
Felix
shirt
Cordish.
and had another Cardano shirt under it, like he was in line, and I was like, "That's awesome."
He's a closet Cardinian.
Yeah, I was like, "Do you want our business card?" He's like, "Bro." He's like, "Okay, well, never mind."
That's great.
But if you need any blockchain services, we are available.
Yeah. I guess we can kind of get into how we all met up. Like we were all just kind of like chasing down a set of chairs. I feel like it was day 2. It was hot out. It was the afternoon. We were looking for a cool place to sit down and grab a seat, meet up with some people, and we all just kind of jumped at these 4 seats there, and sat down. I think Wes really started talking to you guys. I was like busy trying to find a friend, not really paying attention, but.
I think we were both going for the same booth, and we were like, we're not letting these dudes get this seat.
Yeah, we were like,
and
no.
Then it ended up being like a corner booth, and we're like, oh, we can chill.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and I think you guys were doing the same. You were like, snag these seats, huh?
I think I stepped over it. I think I stepped onto the seat like with my feet. I was like, I need to claim this space. And then you guys just casually walked around and were like, well, there's 2 seats right here. And I thought I made, look a fool. But
it was kind of serendipitous because Alonzo and I were literally sitting on the floor. Apparently we had our backs on some mural that someone had painted, and they were trying to take a photo with it, and they didn't really like that we were touching it. And we were just like, do we like leave? Like it's like not, it feels like it's 100 degrees. It's like 3 o'clock. There's like not a lot going on.
What?
some pretty good events.
What did you guys do for some of the after parties and stuff like that? What did you guys do like after the fact? You could just go out to dinners, hang out. Did you go to the official after party?
We didn't get into that one because like it sold out and I don't want to fight that line. So, I think this is where we got kind of lucky that I just joined the block because I had an easier time getting into places. So we ended up at a place called Live for Saturday night. It was pretty wild because we got in on we were on some list, and we get there and we're like, yeah, we're on this list, like let us in. And the woman was like, no, you're not on the list. And
No,
arguing,
we were on a second tier list. There's a first tier list, and then there was a second tier list. Second tier list wasn't allowed in before like midnight or 1 a.m.
Yeah. We were like not VIP enough, which was wild to me.
Drenched in the rain.
Well, it was all right. We went to a hotel lobby close by and had a drink, and then we got a text that our time was there, and we were like, pretending like we were gonna not go, and then we're like, all right, well, let's go check it out. And then that was pretty wild because that was put on by FTX, and I don't know about if you guys watched or saw the FTX news, but they just had a raise of 900 million.
Oh wow!
It's almost $1 billion raise like this week. I think I have the article.
Yeah, but, I think it was yesterday at an $18 billion valuation, and if you look at some of the people that were involved in that raise, like there's traditional finance in there. There's like Sequoia and like the Horowitz group, the Horowitz family, and like all there is traditional finance getting into that FTX raise. And I know Nick said earlier, I think you guys said, or maybe it was Alonzo said, you guys have Solana as well in your portfolio. So I have a little bit of Sol as well.
Yeah, we looked at doing a rig for it, but it didn't really meet our criteria, unfortunately, but we decided to buy some to invest.
Yeah, just to have some.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense. And I've been getting interested in that and like everything going on around that. I feel like Cardano and Solana are the two biggest racers right now that are competing with Ethereum when it comes to like network. And then on the tech side, Solana seems to be racing a little faster, but Cardano, I personally like the slow and steady, peer-reviewed approach that's going on there. And the staking being available now kind of, I think, sets out that they are executing on stuff. I don't know what you guys think on that.
Yeah, I mean, it's been really stable. They've been releasing a lot of updates to kind of like the core nodes and things like that. So far, since we've been involved, it's all been minor version stuff. Because I think it's still the first major version, which I think was released with Shelly last year, was when the first major version came out. I think when they started their decentralization push and everything like that. But since then, there's really only been kind of one update where like there was some problems. Basically, I think nodes were cranking away CPU at the turn of each epoch, and it was causing stalls and things like that. But they resolved it really quickly. And the thing that was even more impressive to me was that the SPOs like upgraded to the like fixed version. Like I think it was like 80% had done it within like an epoch or something. So like they're really on their shit, which is kind of cool. But they've been kind of just marching out updates and that sort of thing. And I don't know. I've used a lot of software in my life, and a lot of software has like issues with it when it does this many releases. And it's this has been very stable, in my opinion.
Yeah, I would say Cardano has been pretty good at getting fixes out and being pretty agile in their development, right? Like just looking at the Alonzo release, how they have the various colors, they're being very obvious about the phases that are required for the technical quality gates. And that just shows that they actually have a quality process and understand how to, build software and build different, applications.
Yeah. And I mean, you hear it from Charles all the time. He doesn't really want to talk about price or any of that stuff, And I think, there's kind of a good and bad thing about that, which is that like he'll only kind of release the features and all that kind of stuff. He won't release smart contracts unless they think it's ready, which might mean that, which is good because there won't be anything broken that comes out, but it also might mean things take a little bit more time. And, depending on who's investing, it might mean a lot to them or not.
Damn it. Sorry, go ahead.
No, go for it.
No, I think this is an interesting topic. I get excited thinking about, the differences in all the kind of cryptocurrencies, right? Like if you think of Ethereum, they're very heavy on this like public beta approach. Like, oh, like we have a problem, we'll think of a solution and we'll ship that solution and it's always going to be fine. Everything's fine. But, places like, can you still hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah, so places like Cardano are actually planning a lot in advance and doing a lot of testing. So like what Nick was saying, it's probably going to be less error prone. And you look at just last week there was like an exploit on Thorchain that was pretty bad. There was multiple issues. There's a Fireblock story on Ethereum where there was like an F2 node that had like lost the keys to the whole node, and like now there's like 75 million worth of Ethereum that's just like completely inaccessible. So there's all these like little things that keep happening on all these fledgling networks, and it's because of that kind of public beta mentality of like, hey, we think this will float, let's see if it floats by throwing it into the water. Whereas Cardano is, let's test the car, build the car. When it runs in the garage exactly how we want it to run, we'll put it on the track that we've also designed so that they work together. But it's going to take us like 7,000 years to like get there. So like chill while we get there. Like that's the Cardano, versus the public beta approach. It's definitely very, very different, I think, than what we see in traditional cryptocurrency projects, because most cryptocurrency projects are fueled by younger folks who don't have as much kind of industry experience. So that's kind of the fact of the matter, in my opinion.
I definitely think like Ethereum is like of the move fast and break things crowd and just kind of ship and fix it after the fact. And it's led to a lot of issues that are now coming to like bear right now, where it's making it slower for them to pivot. And, like getting to staking, it's a big, tough issue. And now that there's so much built on top of that ecosystem, it's hard to like innovate and make changes and make sure that everything is still running. Whereas it looks like Cardano really took the time to like plan the roadmap and like think out the way it's going to get through each specific step on the road, and not just kind of allow a bunch of people on the network to start building out until it's like ready for such. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, even as far as that goes, it's like they have their whole like Plutus Pioneer program, right? And so like this is something I'm messing around with in my spare time, but Plutus is like Solidity. It's the language that they have for the Cardano smart contracts right now, which is primarily like Haskell based. And they have a cohort of like 1,000 or a couple thousand students. This is their second round of classes, and they have these lectures which are pretty dope. I think like if you're just curious on like how the ledger and everything works, you can learn a lot about it through those videos. But it also is like they're trying to teach the developers and get them up to speed on how to write stuff, so that when it does come time for smart contracts, they both have like the learning materials for people to kind of get up and going, because they're all on YouTube for free. So you don't even have to be part of the cohort to even see the stuff. And I think they also opened up their Discord for everyone, which wasn't the case the first round. And you can just learn and get going and do it. And they're just providing those tools for people. That plus, what's the Marlo, which I think is the playground or the graphical sort of interface they're going to be making to help aid in smart contract creation as well. So they're putting a lot of work into like these other things as well. Like it's a multifaceted company with a lot of different arms doing good work to try to make it a success. And so I don't know, that definitely plays a lot into why I like the project.
Yeah, I still don't blame people for having a hard time grasping it in its entirety and dealing with the slow pace. I feel like you have to kind of build up a tolerance of patience, and it can take months, and it can take a successful phase, whether it's Shelly or like native assets. Once you get there and you experience and you get a little hands-on, I feel a little bit more comfortable holding in comparison to just relying on, Charles preaching the gospel. And then beyond that, like you just mentioned 3 different terms: Plutus, Marlo, Hydra, Ouroboros. There's all these, different aspects and efforts going on that all come together, but they're really hard to connect the dots just getting started with being a part of the Cardano community. So I think there's a little bit of a learning curve for entry and comfort. But then once you realize and you start seeing other stuff breaking, that's worth a lot more. But it's struggling. I think it all comes and really clicks together to where you become a hodler.
Yeah. Have you guys talked to your kind of chat about the Cardano Road Map and shown kind of where we're at with that?
Yeah, I've done like a little bit of that and like tried to make some YouTube videos about it, and we talk about it all the time, and like have had some guests on about it. And that's like one of the things over the past year that's like really grown my conviction personally, like being the staking coming out, the pool starting, like getting into this Alonzo situation, the upgrade we just had with having the Alonzo situation also works. Yeah, it also works for Alonzo here. But like everything, like the native assets coming out on Cardano, it's like really sets aside, like it makes all the bear comments you like see on Twitter like so meaningless. Like all these Ethereum maxis are like just when smart contracts, but none of them will admit to anything else that shipped the whole time. You know what I mean? And that kind of is what gets me, and it's like, well, okay, when ETH staking, and then Alonzo, you commented on that whole situation with how much different their staking is, and that you're still trusting a third party with the node. And like I think there's a lot of a barrier there with Cardano. I run into a lot, like explaining to the chat, get your Cardano off an exchange. You can put it in a private wallet and stake it on your private wallet, and nobody has access to it, and you can receive a reward. And then when people hear about staking and rewards, it goes into like, what kind of Ponzi scheme is this? And like, how does it all work? Like, how is just money how is more ADA just appearing? You know what I mean? And it just leads down the whole rabbit hole, I guess.
Yeah, and it's a cool rabbit hole, right? Like I think what we're talking about is crafting monetary policy that has a token or a thing to support it, right? Like previously, in the last thousands of years, you couldn't craft monetary policy this good. It was like find gold, store gold, impact trade, and like hope you're good. Now we can say, let's mint this many over this amount of time and have this perfect curve, and then like give our currency enough time for it to actually take hold. So I think last I looked at the stat, it's like 99% of the Cardano will be in circulation in about 54 years from now. So we have about 54 years to like make
Figure this
Cardano
out.
work. And maybe you want to be conservative and say like, oh, we actually have like 30 years. But either way, there's a significant amount of time built into these networks, and I think that's what people don't understand. There's a lot of trade conversation, price discovery conversation, and people are obsessed with that part of it. But when you consider like, hey, like how did we build the gold reserve? And how long did it take us to do that? And like, what did it look like in the first 5 years of the gold reserve? You'll find that like some of it was, flying by the seat of the pants in a way. And at least here we have like very rigid technical controls, right? We have a monetary policy that has eight plus different parameters that we as a community can kind of affect and control. So, like, the Fed chair should be dreaming about the controls that we have in crypto. Is kind of my opinion.
I like that. I like that a lot. What do you guys think about, like, what are your thoughts, like, proof of work versus proof of stake? How did you guys kind of get over that hurdle?
So I think for me, I got involved from a mining perspective because I wanted to like learn the technology, and I was like, if I can build a mining rig, then I can understand what's happening on it, right? So I naturally started with stuff that was script based, right? So things that could be optimized for GPU. And there's certain cryptocurrencies that GPU mining is accessible, and then there's others that it's just not, right? It's not exactly proof of stake versus proof of work, but it's really about the hardware that's running, whether you're kind of using a lot of GPUs or not. And that's why Bitcoin kind of dominated with these like ASIC chips. It's like if you had an ASIC, you were like crushing everyone because they had like gamed the system and created the perfect hardware to solve that kind of problem. So proof of stake came along and made it affordable because I don't want to spend $15,000 on an ASIC, a new one, and then wait a bunch of time. I could go buy a $300 graphics card, get a laundry basket, and like Vic said, like cover it in some screener so that the cat hair doesn't get in the fans, and then like next thing you know, you're like printing digital currencies. And it's pretty cool. So that's why I think proof of stake kind of changed the game for us and made things a lot more affordable, because it's no longer an arms race around a hardware item. It's an arms race around convincing people of certain future value or utility.
Yeah,
I don't know. What would you say, Nick?
yeah. No, you kind of said the magic words for me, which is kind of like the arms race with proof of work. No, I actually liked. There was like a 2 week period where like Charles was like, I'm gonna make videos about like how Cardano works and like direct them at people. So it was like, this is proof of work versus proof of stake for like, I think it was like Mark Cuban or something. And so it was like a video for Mark Cuban specifically, but he posted it for everyone. And he goes through actually a lot of the different pros and cons of both, right? And I think that's kind of an important thing. It kind of depends what you want out of a system. But for kind of like a nice democratized system, proof of work, just all of the proof of work I've worked with or seen, if you're an incumbent, you just have an advantage over everyone else. And at the end of the day, it kind of feels like as if they promote centralization and that sort of thing. Well, proof of stake, I think it can have that property, but some network protocols, Cardano being one of them, does a good job, I think, preventing, proof of stake from being centralized. And in Cardano's case, stake pools can only be a certain size of delegation before they just have diminishing returns. So as an individual, you're incentivized to kind of spread your delegation out. And sure, someone could have a bunch of pools, but if people care about the network, then they wouldn't. There's no reason to delegate to someone's pool versus another's if they're already amassing a lot of delegation. So I think there's things that are built in that to Cardano's that make its proof of stake a little bit more resilient than some other ones I've seen. But there are a lot of nuances between the protocols when you kind of get to the nitty gritty. That's important to check out as well. But proof of work at the end of the day makes a ton of sense for an asset like Bitcoin, I think. And I think that is an important part of it. But an asset like Bitcoin isn't going to be any of the kind of things that all of the other more advanced second, third generation cryptos are trying to be, which is like a distributed computing platform for like the world to build trust into like a trustless system. And that's a different problem, I think, than what proof of work is going to accomplish for you.
In governance, right? I think that's the other word there to throw in, right? People are obsessed with like DAOs now, like the decentralized autonomous organizations, right? And can you have a token that gives some governance value in moving governance on chain, right? With protocols to advance the the hard forking stuff that we see with Cardano, where they have like a really good like hard forking event that streamlines the process for them, right? There's a lot of niceties that Cardano has because it's built for decentralized thinking, right? A lot of the stuff that we kind of talked about earlier, different cryptos, different blockchain implementations, right? They also have different communities, and I think measuring a community of every crypto is pretty important. And you see stuff like, let's run 40 federated nodes with 40 corporations, and like these are the ones that are going to like keep us up to date, right? Versus Cardano saying, hey, let's open source everything and just like let people run nodes, and now there's 7,000 nodes on the system between producers and relays. So I don't know, it's just each one has a very different approach, and I think they're all very nuanced. So like we really have to talk about a specific project to understand like what is their proof of X implementation, because some even have like proof of science and like proof of whatever, and like the limits, proof of space and time, which is one of my favorites. So I don't want to underscore enough that everything's gotten pretty complex with crypto, and like the space is almost expanding away from us like faster than we can understand what's being developed, right? So it's going back to the question on the graph, like that's a very new cryptocurrency, and it's a very new kind of protocol. So like the newer it is, the less tested it is, and like the real reason I think people clamor behind proof of work is that it's just the most tested and it's still working. So it's like they have the longest track record to point to and say, look, since 2008, this is secure. For everyone else who releases like Nano that has like a block lattice structure, it's like, yeah, maybe block lattices are the future of everything, but also maybe block lattices are the next thing that are going to be exploited. And I think that's where it gets a little bit more complex as well.
We've talked about like a lot of the positives. What are like negatives that you potentially could see with Cardano? There has to be something.
I think some things could be said out loud from leaders in the community that may
absolutely
affect us.
Yeah. Do you think there's any centralization there with like IOHK and like how like ADA is delegated or like the funding and governance right now, like how funding is done for different projects within the ecosystem? Does anybody see that as an issue or anything like that? Or I'm just bringing up some things that I've heard. What like there's
so I
got to be
think the
something.
the biggest issue that in my opinion is the size of the treasury and like the inflation thereof, the currency, and I think there's 30% reserved for the treasury. It's like a very large amount, right? And then we have the Catalyst project that's effectively using that treasury or some amount of it to fund projects, right? And then we kind of know that the projects that are being selected are ones that either are in great community standing or are really supportive of the mission of Cardano to like bank 2 billion unbanked people, right? So we see a lot of like preferential treatment for a certain demographically chosen efforts because they want to kind of infuse Africa with more and more development. And what Charles will tell you, this is at least what he said in an event that I saw him at, was that money just goes farther in Africa and in other places where you have incredibly gifted people who will work tremendously hard for a very reasonable amount. So in his opinion, it's probably a very smart thing to do to invest there and hire talent abroad. So I don't know, like there's definitely some cons, but I think there's also, I think, some silver lining as well to some of these strategies.
It makes a lot
Sorry,
of
I
sense.
didn't mean to make it positive. I was supposed to make it negative, huh?
No, I mean that's a good like turnaround on it. I'm just trying to think. I mean, we're throwing out so much positivity there. Like, how do we, give both sides of the coin to anybody watching, just to not be so one sided on the conversation and be open minded about the
Yeah, I mean,
situation.
I think there's also just a lot of personalities to it, right? Like there's this Spokra group. Have you heard of Spokra?
No.
I definitely don't know the acronym, so I'm not going to try to spell that out. But like basically, it's an alliance of SPOs that want to make sure that there's a voice. They have like a clip of Charles Hoskinson saying that he wouldn't be surprised if there's like a trade alliance that forms among SPOs that like recognize that they have some weight in the system, and like maybe there's a group that gets together, and then so they're like, let's build Spokra. So now there's a group that is talking about like, how the word cost appears in Yori, and how like, is that a good term for folks, or is that really confusing? Or the potential rewards row in Daedalus, where you look at it in your wallet and it says like potential rewards from pool, and it's a 0 for like some of the small stake pools that like aren't as proven. It literally says 0 despite them actually producing blocks. uh, so there's like things like that the Spocker group is starting to like coalesce and say like, hey guys, like these are like top 3, like if you could help us out, that'd be great. So there's cool stuff like that is potentially very helpful, but I think that's also potentially negative. Like there could be potentially be beef between the community, if like we're not able to reach an agreement on a certain term. I could see that being a negative driver in kind of communication on social media and other places. I think that's a possible negative.
Yeah, yeah. The community is like really passionate, which is definitely one of the things that attracted me to it. But I don't know. To me, it feels like it's kind of sometimes takes the form of a lot of online communities where there's like a pile-on effect on certain things. Like actually, Alonzo and I disagree about this one, but like with all the stuff going on with like Meld over the past month, which I'm not sure if you've talked to your delegators, but basically, there's a stake pool operator who says they're going to do this like initial stake pool offering where if you delegate with their pool, then they're eventually going to give you some of their token. And the hope is that that token is worth something and it's a separate asset. And so you want to get involved in that, like an IPO for a company going public. It's an SPO or ISPO. And there was a lot of argument in the community about it because like people would delegate for the promise of this asset in the future, but the pool had completely maximized fees. So by delegating, you're basically giving them their rewards. And I think we calculated it. What was it, Alonzo? They were making like $1 million a month or something off of their couple of pools. What was it?
Way worse. It was like 40,000 ADA per epoch.
Yeah, something like that. They're making just a shit ton of money, like really just amazing. And I can't speak to their project or the validity. I haven't done a ton of research, but like it became like a lightning rod of discussion where like a lot of the SPOs were like, Meld is basically evil because, at the end of the day, I think there's some self-interest there, right? They don't want this pool suddenly taking away a bunch of delegation from, I guess, what they think are people who don't know better, which I think is maybe presumptuous. But like, and so like there's just a lot of stuff on Twitter about that. And it's just like there's a lot of cool stuff going on, but like everyone's like complaining about Meld. And it's just like I think the community has that aspect to it, which again I think is common of a lot of online communities at the end of the day. That's definitely one part I haven't liked as much.
Well, like speaking of Spokra and communities kind of coming together, I think we touch on the partnership here between Rare Pool and Epoch Pool here. That's kind of come together, and you guys helping us on the tech side, kind of getting our pool back together and up and running. I think that shows a great statement in the community there that one pool is able to help another kind of build this together. You know what I mean? And kind of keep it going. And I think that's a good note here to touch on for the chat. The partnership here with Rare Pool coming together, and just in time, you guys came in the nick of time after that. After the Bitcoin conference and got us up and running. And my God, I mean, how long was it? A week or two after we got that block and we got that amazing delegation as well, correct?
It's true. I was just thinking like back to what you were saying, Nick. So what happened was over the weekend, Cardano Foundation delegated around 14.5 million ADA to Rare. I was out on a boat Saturday night. Nick goes whale alert, and then we all celebrate. So that was really good. We're on the third week of the partnership, I think.
Yeah.
So good first month, we'll call it. Between getting the pool recovered, back up and running, and a really nice infrastructure that Nick's got laid out, getting our first block, and to follow a nice little surprise from the Cardano Foundation. Massive surprise.
Yeah, and I think it's good to point out you guys, again, have your own pool and people can delegate there as well as Rare Pool. And that's important for everybody to know. Like where's the best way that people can find you guys and your pool and communicate with you guys? Like what's the best way to reach out, be a part of the community you guys have going?
Yeah, I think we have the Epoch Pool Twitter handle, where we definitely can chat and take DMs and discuss things. I think the epochstakepool.com is where we've been kind of showing people instructions on how to kind of get involved and where we think kind of helpful FAQs. And I think those are kind of the places where we're funneling people. And yeah, I don't know. Wasn't there a to-do for me to make some Gmail account?
Yeah, that's on your to-do list.
So coming soon, a Gmail account.
That's good. I mean, the Twitter is a great one, and I put the Twitter in the chat there so that everybody can click on that and give you guys a follow. And of course, when this drops on YouTube, minus all of the production issues, we will definitely put all that in the links below. We did have some funny comments in chat. Patio Furniture said, "Please deposit $8.99 to continue your meeting." Power Live said, "The Google rug pool." And Rodney said you should have done it in Discord.
We should have done it in Discord.
I think that's a permanent. I've never run into a timing issue with Google Meets. They might have just lost my business on that route of things with it being unlimited and everything with Discord. So, but yeah,
are we going to spend time talking about Hydra? Because I got excited ever since somebody said Hydra.
Fire it up, dude. Just jump right into it. Let's go.
So Hydra is, what we're talking about in the Basho part of the roadmap. So there's like 5, parts of the roadmap, and the scaling one is called Basho. And what they're trying to do is actually create, a layer 2 solution that's gonna be incredibly fast. And it gets into like what expected like transactions per second we could expect in the longer term. Usually it's seen as like TPS, but that's what people talk about when we're like, hey, how are we comparing against a Visa or MasterCard, right? In terms of transactions per second, we really want to have financial systems that can scale well beyond the tens of thousands of transactions that are happening or that could be happening, per second. So if you look at the research paper that they put out, they basically have what's called linear scaling, meaning that like if you keep adding more of the thing, you keep getting the same amount of increase to performance. So what was interesting was that they were able to have, I think it was like 700,000 TPS like per stake pool if you added a Hydra head component to it. And I was like that's 700,000 TPS. Like one alone would be enough to beat like one of our current kind of top networks, Visa or MasterCard. So the idea that we could have like 10,000, like imagine 10,000 stake pools exist and then 10,000 stake pools install this like Hydra protocol, like theoretically we could be pushing, millions of TPS. So I don't know, I got to the bottom of that research paper and I was just like, wow, I feel really good about this investment. Like you really want to know that people are future proofing. And the math on that was just wildly good. So I get excited thinking about them this year trying to get closer to a release on Hydra. And that's not even the tail component, because there's 3 parts of Hydra. There's like the head, the tail, and the middleware.
It's like
And the paper
Hydro
only.
Plus or something.
Yeah.
Was that the cliffhanger at the end of the research paper?
No, they didn't use that tagline, but I think you should reach out to their marketing team.
Yeah, there's some. I watched some video with Hodgkinson, and I think he had something coined for the final stage.
Voltaire.
Some sort of additional phase in Hydra that's got its own meaning, but
Is this basically like a blockchain sort of sharding sort of mechanism? Is what Hydra is?
Exactly.
Got it. Yeah.
Yeah, they'd be
It'll
sharding.
it'll be interesting to see how that kind of stuff plays out, because and how like sharding works in a blockchain like that. Like I know AVAX has their
Hey Nick, what's sharding?
so yeah, that's a good question, right? So basically the idea is that rather than having one big ledger that everyone is basically managing and adding to together, you break it up into smaller chunks, so that way you're basically dealing with smaller pieces of the network and the ledger on an individual node or transaction basis, allowing there to be more throughput. So kind of the concept, you could think of it as like adding a couple lanes to a single lane road. You're gonna have more throughput because they're kind of managed separately. That's the general concept of sharding. I'm sure, I know AVAX is a very different kind of implementation of how to sharding than other networks, for example, where even the different shards can have like different like hardware specifications. So there might be a side chain that's only accessible to people with like 56 core GPU machines, while others just might have kind of identical shards that happen on those side chains and that sort of thing. But that's kind of one of the big things, techniques that folks are rallying around across cryptos, and like how do you scale them? And the scaling piece is interesting because like you talk about like however many hundreds of thousands or whatever number of transactions per second, and a lot of people are like, that's like 10 times Visa or whatever, or 1,000 times these like major payment networks. And you might wonder like why that even matters, I guess, at the end of the day, because like, are we really going to be having that many more transactions than like the global credit card networks? I think like the really important thing to think about is that like, ultimately for something like Cardano, at least in my opinion, the goal isn't going to ever be to be like, I go to Starbucks and buy my, white mocha frappuccino with chocolate chips, which is my order, and use ADA on that, right? The goal with something like Cardano is that you have a bunch of awesome dApps that are created, and people use Cardano not because they like ADA, but they use it because all the cool shit they like is on Cardano, right? The same reason why people bought iPhones at first. They bought them because the App Store was just fucking absurd. Like you could buy the app that would literally, what was it, like the food roulette app? You press it and find like a random restaurant near you for you to go. And
Yeah.
I was like, let's get an iPhone so I can not think about what to eat for dinner and press a button and like a slot machine will go, right? And I'm sure Cardano will have something less of a novelty like that than that'll be like the killer application. But that's what's going to pull people onto the network. And the thing to remember is that all these apps, they have to execute transactions to actually do anything. And that's where the transaction volume you expect to explode is when those killer apps go up and scale, and you now have something that's like, whatever, pulling something out of my head, but like, you have like an application like a decentralized Twitter that exists on Cardano, who knows? And at that point, like maybe every tweet is like a transaction, who knows? And that's where like the volume scales, and stuff like Hydra, it becomes a necessity, but not because everyone is just exchanging ADA because that's the new currency that everyone likes.
Oh, of course. Yeah, I think that's spot on. But I think, Nick, one thing, I guess, one minor or it's not a minor detail, but a big detail. I mean, I don't think Hydra is sharding the ledger. I think, what they're introducing is it's called like isomorphic multi-party state channels, right? And that is pretty fancy stuff. So I think whenever you can move to like state transitions, you're definitely improving performance. But the sharding, my understanding, is in the stake space and like not exactly the ledger. But I don't know what they're sharding, to be honest, right? Like they have to still work on it. All they did, well, I don't want to say all they did to diminish it, but they produced this white paper, and now they actually have to like write code that makes this white paper into reality. So I think that's where, for me, that's where the engineering comes in, right? Theory has to become practical. So we'll actually see how Cardano kind of pulls the sharding rabbit out of the hat.
I just want everyone to know that before Alonzo contradicted me publicly, he also sent me a link to his own tweet on the subject, so I could go to his Twitter and see what he said about this on June 12th.
I was gonna tell you what I was about to say. You weren't supposed to tell that.
Oh yeah, and I will let you all know that he just read that tweet out loud to you all in the last 20 seconds.
Number one, you didn't read the social media strategy. We have to link the Twitter.
What are some of like? I think it's good to kind of like getting like kind of back into the stake pool operation and stuff, and like
Sure.
especially with you guys helping us on the technical side. Like, what are some of the like day-to-day and like operational hurdles anybody should kind of expect that wants to get into a stake pool? And like, you know, we kind of touched on a little bit getting set up, finding the documentation, but like once you have a stake pool up and running, like what are some day-to-day hurdles? What's kind of like the life of a stake pool operator from a technical side, and you know things like that. What do you guys?
I think there's two big parts. There's a back end and a front end part, right? Like there's the keeping up with delegators and communicating effectively with people. Make sure you're sharing the right news that keeps people kind of aware and safe. And then there's kind of everything in terms of the back end. Nick, what do you want to say in terms of maintaining the node and anything there?
Yeah, so you know the documentation, getting back on that, is good if you want to like just kind of get the instructions of how do you get kind of the stake pool up and running. But I think there's kind of a lot of kind of the underlying concepts of like what, like when you set up a stake pool, you end up with like 10 or 12 different keys that you have to manage, and like understanding what those are for, which ones are kind of important for security versus which ones are important for like operation and all that kind of stuff is important, so that when things kind of don't go as expected, you kind of know where to look. Because you know the one thing I haven't found is not a single troubleshooting guide from what I can tell, and that's probably one of the areas where maybe kind of some of the software isn't as helpful. Is like if something's not going well, you're not really gonna get a ton of helpful error messages and stuff, that sort of thing about what's going on there. And so really kind of understanding the underlying concepts is important. But then the other big thing is just like, how do you basically run a server that you don't really plan to take offline very often and make sure that it kind of is able to run for days or weeks or whatever at a time, you know, and that sort of thing. You know, how do you make sure that you understand like the block schedule so you can kind of run maintenance and make sure things are going smoothly there. And at the end of the day, how much can you automate all of it, so that when you're doing these kind of rote operations, you're just not kind of typing 15 commands every single time, but you've written scripts to make that a lot easier. And that's kind of like the phase that we're in right now, which is trying to put as many things behind a single script as possible, so we just don't have to do that stuff very often. Another big one though is kind of making sure that like as you have a pool, you have like a good peer list, which is an interesting concept that I don't know if I've seen it in other blockchains. Usually when you kind of hook up to the network, it's like it'll find you the other nodes and you'll be open to them and you'll send things to them, and just kind of all works. Cardano is an interesting one because you basically have to list who are my peers, and other people have to list you as a peer. And you know, so you have to kind of find the right number. And there are some community tools that make that a lot easier. Again, CN tool, guild operator stuff is really great for this. But that's definitely kind of a gotcha with this, is that you got to figure out your own peer network and make sure it's globally distributed so that your node is kind of receiving information from everyone around the world and up to date when it needs.
That makes a lot of sense, and there's a lot that goes into the back end, which myself and Wes, you learned a lot trying to keep up with all of it going into.
Yeah, I mean, it's to the point where you have to meet with random people on the internet and put your heads together, and sometimes you don't always get the result you're looking for. So, I mean, to bring it back where we were at, basically before Bitcoin Miami, we had a broke skate pool. And then we sat in the right place to sit next to these dudes and converse. And then within like 3 weeks, we were back up after for a few months of downtime. So I think at this point, it's a little bit of a new beginning and rebirth for us. And it's going to allow this partnership where Nick and Alonzo are really R&D, will allow us to focus our energy on like community outreach, making our delegators satisfied, putting all 4 of our heads together to put out new features and incentive mechanisms to keep people happy.
Yeah, and I feel like this is a really good beginning and kind of introductory fun we've had here. before we like really give away any too much of what's down the road. You know what I mean? But I think we did a good job kind of like introducing everybody. We got really a lot deeper into Cardano, what's going on with the roadmap there than I thought we would, to be honest. I think we actually had a really good conversation today. What do you guys think? Anything to like wrap it up? Any final notes or anything like that?
I don't know. I felt like, you know, Nick really knocked me down a peg on that last one. So I'm still thinking of a retort. I was gonna ask Wes, you know, how it was working with Nick, because my understanding is, you know, you two kind of spend a good amount of time troubleshooting the pool and trying to understand, like, can it be resurrected? How do we make the migration happen to the new infrastructure? And ultimately, I know we kind of spun it up in our AWS environment, and shared some relays to make efficient use of the space we already have. But I don't know. Can you speak to working with Nick and in some way throw him under the bus at the end?
I was gonna say, do you want me to just? No. Nick and I have had a couple one-on-ones where we dive in and troubleshoot things together and strategize, and it's been a pleasure. I think it makes it a lot more easy to the fact that we've met one another in the physical, kind of good read. But I can only imagine how some of these collaborations happened, you know, on the internal test net. Obviously, there was a lot, maybe less at stake, money-wise there. But no, it's been a really enlightening experience. Had a couple moments where I go, oh, check here, check there, and Nick goes, oh, that's a good idea, and I go, all right. I wasn't completely lost. So there's another compliment for Nick. Sorry.
Killing me. I've had to put up with this for years.
No, I mean, it has been awesome to like watch you two, like when you've been at my house working on it. Like I'm somebody on strictly the opposite side, like Alonzo said, like marketing, communications, and like watching you guys work and like troubleshoot stuff together really opened my eyes to not only what Wes was possibly trying to do on his own without Nick, and then like how you need somebody else to like bounce some ideas off of to like get you out of that loop of whatever you're checking the issue may be. Like watching you guys kind of bounce some ideas off each other and kind of like troubleshoot through it, I was like, wow, we definitely needed this. Like there's no way myself and Wes could have done this on our own because I provide no technical background at all. So like to have Nick's expertise come in, and then like Alonzo definitely on your end, like communication wise, keeping us like up to date and everything like that. I think the partnership's been great, and definitely to what Wes said, meeting in person was great. I couldn't imagine how it would have all come together just through the internet without having a place to kind of meet, shake hands, have a drink, and make that friendship come together. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and also following up on it was pretty easy. I don't know what it was. It felt like that Bitcoin conference was almost like a catalyst for a lot of us. It was like shaking off the, hey, we've been in hibernation here, kind of learning and scheming, and like now it's time to share the ideas and actually see what resonates with folks. So I think just setting up our Discord channel, or our Discord for us, this group, has been fun. And just starting, like you said, there's things that we'll probably be sharing in upcoming episodes, but there's a lot of cool development going on that should benefit delegators. So we're pretty excited about what hopefully we can share pretty soon.
Absolutely, and that goes both for Rare Pool and Epoch Pool.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, we're in the same ecosystem at this point, and we hope to roll out things together. They might be different designs or different approaches, or things under the hood, but ultimately we're going to try, I think, to share as much of the development that we do with the pools that we partner with.
I'm pumped now. I'm excited. People need to get out there, delegate, figure out how to get some Cardano, get some ADA in their private wallet, become a part of the ecosystem. I feel like that's a good way to kind of wrap this thing up. And anything else in there? We good? Do a little cheers on our way out, huh?
Yeah.
Oh, hell yeah. Beer. 1 second.
Quick, before the Google Meets cuts us off again.
Alonzo, did I see you are in the beer business?
Yeah,
Twitter handle?
yeah.
Nice. What is this?
I was the CTO of the Brew Gentleman Beer Company for a while.
What? I just invested in a microbrewery here in Cincinnati that opened during the pandemic, so that's interesting.
So you're drinking the best beer out of all.
Yeah. Well, cheers, gentlemen.
Yeah.
Cheers to a
Cheers.
good partnership. Cheers to both the pools, and good long fun.
Oh yeah.
And prosperity.
Prosperity as well for everybody, all the delegates and everybody involved. That's for sure.
Until next time.
Until next time.
Till next time, gentlemen.
Cheers, guys.
Cheers. Thank you for watching the YouTube videos. We really appreciate it. Don't forget to hit the thumbs up button, subscribe, comment down below, help us out with the YouTube algorithms. And we're live 5 days a week on Twitch, 7 a.m. to 2 p.m. EST. Come check us out. Thanks for watching.